Hi, good morning, afternoon, everybody. We're here with Democratic Dialogue, and we are going to be talking today about some different issues that affect many of us in our community, and I'm going to introduce you to my friend Anna.
Hi, my name is Anna Baglanea-Sieves, and I am the Vice President of an organization called COFAR, Coalition of Family Advocates, and I am the mother of an adult son, Yanni, who is 31, who has Down syndrome. And the reason I got involved was because Yanni was abused at a group home 2 years ago and almost died. And as a result of that, I found out how rampant abuse of people with developmental disabilities is not only in Massachusetts, but all around the country. So, of course, I couldn't, just walk away from that, knowing that I really wanted to get involved and find out. So I did.
So one of the reasons that you and I connected is, well, I'm Eileen Duff. I am on the Governor's Council from Gloucester. You're from Rockport with Cape Ann people. And I have a deep interest not just in social justice, of which this is a really important issue, but also in this particular community because I also had a sister with Down syndrome. I was her medical guardian. We lost her about 12 years ago now. But I don't know that folks are really always aware of how much you have to advocate for your loved one until, unfortunately, that situation presents itself. So, Anna, will you tell us a little bit about what happened with Yanni and, what sort of propelled you into this advocacy role, making you aware of what was happening to him in a place where you had really trusted he'd be safe?
Absolutely. So Yanni has 4 brothers and sisters. He's the oldest. But as he saw them moving out, driving, going to college, getting apartments and jobs, he got more and more frustrated because he wanted to know when it was his turn to do that. So he went through a really bad mental health crisis where he was very depressed. So I started looking at residential options for him. And found a group home in Beverly. And I thought, I asked all the right questions.
Yep.
I was very involved with the staff.
You did your homework.
I did my homework, I thought.
Yeah.
I asked, the questions. So he moved into the group home. He did a great job transitioning. He was thrilled to be out of the house and away from mom.
I bet.
I used to joke with him. I was like, so how is it that, mom can't tell you what to do all the time anymore? And he would just laugh.
I bet.
Laugh. He thought that was great.
And he had a roommate.
He had 3 roommates. So they all had their own bedrooms.
Right.
At the time of his abuse, it was down to, I think, two roommates. Oh, no, there were still 3 there. But yeah, so it was a house.
So they live in a community, just like so many people when you get out of high school, college, and you move out of the house, you're living with a group of people.
He's living with the guys. He used to say, the guys, Mom, I'm a guy.
Same thing,
Yeah, so he's living with the guys. We were very involved with the group home and everything. So what happened was he aspirated on food and got very, very sick. We were not informed that he was sick at all. So Easter weekend was coming and he was going to come home for the weekend. Sure. He was doing Special Olympics track in Gloucester. And so we said, well, bring him to track practice and then we'll pick him up from track practice and take him home for the weekend. I had no idea how sick he was. When we got to track practice, he was in the bathroom and the staff member she just said, he's in the bathroom, and she gave us his stuff for the weekend, and she left. And
so no one, excuse me, but up until this point, so over a day's gone by now.
This is, well, he aspirated on Sunday night. This is now Saturday.
So a whole week's gone by, and no one's called you, and you live,
half an hour away.
Yeah. To say, just so you know, your son had this issue.
No, I was told he had allergies.
Okay,
which he'd
happens,
had before.
Yeah.
He'd had seasonal allergies before. He'd taken some allergy meds here and there because of that issue. So I didn't think anything of it. I had seen him 4 times the week before.
Right.
So I thought, well, he's coming home for Easter weekend.
Right.
Everything. I had absolutely no idea. Nobody called me. So he came out of the bathroom at track practice, and I saw like, oh, he's doesn't look so great. But I was told allergies, so I thought, well, I'll just take him out of the pollen air.
Yeah.
And give him some lunch and see how he does. Became very apparent very quickly that this was something more. So I took him over to Addison Gilbert, and he had a blood oxygen of 50. He was septic. He was admitted directly to the intensive care unit. Dr. Arsenian,
Great doctor.
a great, always, I think he lives at the hospital. He does. He's very dedicated.
And a gift to our community.
Yes, he is, definitely. And so he asked me if Yanni had a DNR order. He's 28 years old. I said, absolutely not. He's 28 years old.
Right.
I said, is he going to live? And he said, I'm going to do everything that I can. He's very, very sick. And he was. He was septic. He had to be intubated and put on a ventilator.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I find this so incredibly astounding because another thing about your son that you shared with me earlier is he's not necessarily very verbal.
Correct.
He can use some words, but he has a motor issue with
Yes.
his mouth muscles.
Yes.
So he communicates in other ways with sign language, with a communication device and everything. So he was letting them know as best he could he wasn't well. But just from physically looking at him,
you knew.
you could tell there was something wrong. I mean, he's a
Absolutely.
man, a young man, literally couldn't eat his lunch.
Correct.
And I know from having a sister with Down syndrome, she loved her snacks. She loved to eat.
I bought him hot dogs.
And that's how not to stereotype, but sometimes
Yeah.
that's, when my sister got very
absolutely.
ill, that was one of the ways we knew she's not well.
Yeah.
Because she's not eating
That's
her
right.
favorite thing.
That's right.
And so the staff who lived there and was with him all the time had to have known that.
Well, they did.
So not just to be not looking well, but to actually get to the point of sepsis,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is a deadly,
Yes.
critically serious
Yes.
thing. In the blood oxygen, I mean, it's really astounding that he lived.
We are very, very lucky. And like Dr. Arsenian, he did everything that he
did.
could. He really did. And he kept Yanni alive. And Yanni was at Addison Gilbert for a week in intensive care on a ventilator. And then we moved him to Mass General. We med-flighted him to Mass General, where he was in intensive care for another week. So he was in intensive care for almost 2 weeks, 11 days of it on a ventilator. He spent 6 weeks in the hospital. And now he still has breathing issues. He's on 3 different asthma meds.
And so when you addressed this with the group home, what was their reaction, or did they accept any accountability or
They
responsibility?
still have not accepted accountability. I called the Disabled Persons Protection Commission to report it as abuse, because it became very apparent to me that this was in no way, that he was definitely abused.
Right.
So they did not admit any wrongdoing at all, but 6 of the 7, so it ended up that there were 7 people substantiated of abusing him in the DDS so it was a state investigation.
So the state investigated, and the state themselves concluded that these people were negligent, and through their negligence abused
yes.
this man.
Yes.
Almost costing him his life.
Correct.
And so what's happened? Were they fired? Were they fined? Was there anything?
They were not. No. Nobody got fired, fined, or prosecuted at all.
How about
They had to do some extra paperwork.
Yeah.
Other than that, nothing happened to any of them. And in fact, the residential services director of the group home company, she hid his records from the investigator and threatened the staff not to cooperate with the investigator, and actually told the investigator that, yes, I did those things.
So it's just
Because she
astounding.
knew she could.
And this is a private company that the state is paying.
Correct. This is, yeah, so there's...
So these are our tax dollars at work.
Exactly, and to the tune of hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars every year. And there's no oversight, there's no accountability. And that sort of all became clear to me. I had no idea. You know, I thought like, oh, okay, we're going to get some justice, the people are going to care, you know, and that was not the case at all.
Yeah. Well, the thing that's interesting for me, having dealt with the system a little bit, not in the degree that you have. I mean, my mother was doing most of the advocating for my sister at the time. I advocated in different ways for different things. You know, like, you know, when you're a member of a family, you know, you become part of that team.
Yes.
Like your other siblings were part of Team Zanny. We were part of Team Terry. I mean, we focused on, you know, it was we were born with abilities that she wasn't. And we knew that. And we also knew that we had to rise up and take care of this person, which is frankly, you know, what it's about, right? So it's the thing I think some folks don't understand is that any time, now your son and my sister were born with this disability, with the, you know, this mental, whatever you want to call it, disability. Anyone can become disabled in this way at any time. The young lady who lives down the street from me, 25 years old, just had a stroke.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so now she's in the care of somebody else in a home like this.
That's right.
And so any of us could be in an accident, a car accident, and anything can happen where we end up, or someone we love, suddenly overnight in a group home like this, and at risk.
Yes.
Because people don't seem to care. And for me, I know that some of these folks aren't paid well.
That's true. That's very, very true. That's very true.
And it's hard, and sometimes it's unpleasant work.
That's true.
Not everyone is an easy
absolutely not.
person to take care of.
That is an issue that needs to be addressed, and it's actually one of the ARC's legislative priorities this year, is raising the wages of all direct care staff who make under $75,000 a year.
Is this a bill?
This is a bill. I don't have that bill number. Also, there is a union. There is a direct care provider union. I always forget the exact. It's SIEE.
Yeah, the acronym. That's all right.
Yes. They also have legislation has been filed. It's been voted down, or it's been sent to committee.
So when you send, just so people at home know, sometimes when you send something to committee, you're really sending it to purgatory.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just out there floating around because you don't have the courage to take an up or down vote on it.
That's right. So that issue has been addressed before too. You know, I'm hoping that because the ARC is making it their priority legislation, that will really, you know, push it through hopefully this time. And I think we're just seeing more and more stories too come out, and more attention being paid to the issue.
Are the care workers required to have any sort of training or accreditation or degree?
The only thing that they are required to have is if they're administering medication, they have to be MAP certified.
Okay.
Other than that, no, they do not. And that's some of the other things that people are proposing as well, is that there be some sort of certification.
Correct.
You know, which would also help too when you're asking for more money. Well, you know, I have to get certified. You know, it's a more professional standing.
Exactly. It makes perfect sense. It's almost the same thing we see with some of the issues happening with elder care.
Yes.
Is people get abused, but they say, well, we can't get anyone else to do the work, and we get ourselves on this gerbil wheel where we really need to pay people more, but we can hold them to higher standards, but we've got to set up the mechanisms, and it sounds like you're really doing some good work on that.
Well, yeah, and we have some other legislation that we're working on specifically, and then also legislation that we're supporting.
Okay.
So one of the bills that we're supporting is called Nikki's Law, and that's actually S71.
So S is a Senate bill.
Yes, I
So
don't know
it's-
what the House number is.
Yeah,
It
but that's
does-
all
It
right.
has a House number too. So this is I think it's the third refile of this bill.
Okay.
So this bill came about because Nikki's mother, Cheryl Chan, he was abused in a day program, and so this would create a registry of caretakers who've been substantiated of abuse by a state investigation. It would create a registry. So when a provider is looking to hire somebody, they would have to check the registry and make sure that person was not on the
Right.
registry.
It's almost like a Corey registration in a sense, but for
well, they
people,
already Corey.
but,
so this
but they're
is-
working, right?
Yeah.
But they're working to see if these are folks who are working in these care industries.
who've been substantiated of abuse.
Right. It's not an accusation. It's we know this happened.
Exactly, because the people who are accused have, so there's already been an investigation. They can appeal the investigation, and then they can also appeal being put on the registry, and then every 5 years they can appeal to have their name taken off. So they have, due process on that. Who doesn't have due process are the people who are abused, because very few of these cases, something like 3%, are ever prosecuted.
And about how many accusations a year are we hearing?
So the DPPC, which is the Disabled Persons Protection Commission, which is the hotline, like if you think somebody with a disability has been abused, that's who you call to report it to. And they receive, this is fiscal year 2018, they received over 18,000 phone calls on their hotline. That's about almost 12,000 abuse reports. It's an increase of 9% from fiscal year 2017, and that's the trend that we see, is this goes up and up and up every year, these numbers. They assigned 2,500 investigations. They completed almost 2,000. And they're also the place that will, like if somebody calls into the hotline, said this person is being abused, if they need protective services right away, they will bring those services in for that person and remove them from if there's an abusive situation. So this is a rampant epidemic. The Inspector General's Office of the United States Government did an audit of Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Maine, and found that abuse was rampant through the system, and actually said that group home beneficiaries are at risk of serious harm, and that states need to form SWAT teams
That is frightening.
to take care of this problem.
That is frightening. On so many levels, but I can also say, as a sibling of a special needs person, my parents' goal was to have her live independently. Exactly what you were describing with your son.
Yes.
They watched their siblings move out of the house. They watched them get jobs. They watched them get driver's licenses. They watched them get apartments. And as my mom said, my sister may have had Down syndrome, but she was not stupid.
right.
She was acutely aware of everything going
right.
on around her. She knew when people pointed at her and stared at her and looked at her and called her nasty names. Very sensitive, very, very aware of all these things. And so when it's a parent's dream to give their child, like any child that you love, their independence, it must be so difficult to trust the system at this point.
Well, it's
And I know that
it's
sounds like-
difficult. It's difficult too because there's really no transparency. So if you're looking at a group home, there's no way for you to know unless you do a public records request and know to request the DPPC call logs.
Tell us what that means, DPCC.
So the DPPC is a Disabled Persons Protection Commission.
Okay.
Because
Because people watching this may want to know this, because they may have someone in their realm that needs.
I recommend, you put in a public records request for the long form of the DPPC call log records,
Yeah.
and that for a specific provider. And, if you want to go back 3 years or whatever, that will give you it doesn't identify the person who was the victim, and it doesn't even identify any of the abusers. It just gives a brief synopsis of what happened, if it was referred to the DA's office,
Right.
and if it was substantiated or not substantiated. So you can get kind of an idea, because right now the only information, the DDS, Department of Developmental Services, does put up their 2-year reviews. So every 2 years they review a license
Right.
for these providers, and they do publish those. But it doesn't say anything about abuse. If you look at the 2-year review that was done after Yanni's abuse, you would never know that somebody almost died in that provider company. So that's another piece of legislation that actually is near and dear to me, because I was like, I know Yanni's going to want to move out of the house again. How am I going to know
He's safe.
about this provider? I want the information. So I was looking around. The state of Illinois started last year. It's a scorecard registry.
Wow.
So it's a list of all the providers, state and private, and it gives you how many allegations of abuse, substantiations of abuse, and it gives you that kind of information. And also, like, if you are trying to put somebody in a nursing home, you can go to the Medicare website of the government maintains a website that keeps kind of a scorecard on nursing homes.
That's important.
But we have nothing like that for group homes. So the bill that I filed this year was H93, and that is to give individuals and families transparency.
Who are the representatives and senators sponsoring these? with
So
you?
this bill is John Cahill
Okay.
is the sponsor of this. Nikki's Law is Senator Moore.
Okay.
I'm not sure about, I have Tommy's Law here. I'm not sure who that is. We have another bill, which is to establish an independent office of quality assurance for DDS. And it was, this is probably the 6th refile of this one. It used to be Scatia.
Yeah.
Scatia. And I can't remember now. We've changed who it is this year.
So I know we're starting to roll down the clock, but I wanted to tell people at home, one of the great things about the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is citizens can file bills. You've got to get a representative, a senator to sponsor it for you.
Yes.
But you actually can do this. We actually are really empowered in a way that a lot of states are not. And that's really tremendous that you and these other parents are doing this, because the abuse and the neglect your son suffered was horrific. And there's also, we don't have time to talk about it today, and maybe it's good because it is so horrible, but then there's the sexual abuse of these young folks, or doesn't matter how old they are. And in the physical beating of some of these people, the broken bones, the bruises, the scalding in showers and things. I mean, it's just...
It goes on and on.
And it's really, really frightening.
A week doesn't go by that I don't get a phone call from someone.
To think that your son actually aspirated in a place where someone was supposed to be caring for him, and an entire week went by before they realized he couldn't breathe, his body was shutting down, and he had become septic. It's literally mind-boggling. Mind-boggling.
It is, and that's why I had to get involved, because I felt like I fell down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I'm just amazed that this
we're
happens.
We're glad you went down, and we're hoping you get back up, Anna. Because no, really, honestly, for those of us that advocate, people get irritated with us sometimes, but the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And I truly believe, as you, and I think most people do, that we are responsible not just for our own families, but for everybody else who can't take care of themselves. That's what part of being in a democracy is. We are here to help everyone rise up together, lift them up, and if you see someone who's disabled in any particular way, or somebody who's elderly, because we're all going to hopefully be elderly, right? And most of us are going to end up with some type of disability at some time, whether it's a mobility issue, a seeing issue, a cognitive issue. These are, and that's why this is so important, I think, for people to realize is right now we're talking about things that have happened to other people, but this is going to happen to all of us at
Yes.
some time, or it can.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're getting a signal that we're running out of time. I'd love to talk to you again about this.
I'd love to talk to you again too.
Thank you for this work. It's really, really important. And thank you for being on this program today, Democratic Dialogue. We have a few seconds left. Anything you'd like to leave us with?
I'll be putting a call to action out, to ask people to call their reps and senators when these bills go through hearings and then come up for votes, that we need support.
So we will look for that. Maybe it will be in the paper. I'm sure it will be online, and we will get to Ann Margaret Ferrante and Bruce Tarr, and we'll do our best.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to have you.
Too. Thanks.